Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of our entitled parents. In today's episode, father called me a thing because they had to wait like everyone else. My mother took away my computer, only to tell me that you should be thanking me. Entitled mother touches my dog's wounds and gets mad when he nips at her. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Father called me a thing because they had to wait like everyone else. To clarify, this isn't my story, but I've been given permission from my friend to share it here. She works as an admissions clerk in a children's hospital, specifically in the accident and emergency department. Basically, her job to input the details of the children who come to A&E and put them into the system before they are triaged by the nurse and then admitted or seen by a doctor or whatever. She also does this for ambulances that come in. I'll tell the story from her POV. It was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon when a man, entitled Dad or ED, who looked to be in his 40s, came into the emergency department wearing a full suit and tie. It's been really busy lately now that everything has opened up, and with COVID cases rising, waiting times can be up to a few hours. ED has a little girl, roughly 2 years old, with him who looks awful. Her eyes are dull and tired looking, her face is red, and she's sniffling every couple of seconds. He immediately seemed annoyed and impatient as he walks up to the desk. Before I could speak to greet him, he waves this piece of paper at me impatiently as he sits down. "I've got a letter from my GP, it's for my little girl." I nodded and checked the computer and found the referral. I smiled and said, "Yes, we've been expecting you. Can I ask her date of birth?" ED looks at me like I'm stupid and says, "The GP sent us, shouldn't you have the details there?" He says condescendingly, "No, unfortunately we don't get that information sent to us, and I'll need to confirm it." He huffs but answers me, looking more annoyed at my questions, which are standard and necessary to admit any patient. "Okay, so what seems to be the problem?" I ask. "I had to leave my work and drive all the way down to pick up little girl from nursery. I got a call to tell me I had to come collect her, that she was too unwell to be around the other kids. They said she was unwell, just sitting herself and not eating her lunch. I called the GP, and they gave us a referral letter and told us to come here." He said this while scowling at his daughter, like it was her fault. I asked more the standard questions to find out how sick the little girl was. ED just kept steering the conversation back to, "I had to leave my work to collect her," and sounding like his child being sick was just the biggest inconvenience in the entire world to him. "Does she have a temperature?" "Yeah, it's been worse at night, and we've been giving her Calpol." "I see, and when did the temperature start?" 3 days ago." I pause and my eyebrows raise as I look over at him. "And she was at nursery today?" I ask, my tone perfectly polite, but the implications weren't. For 3 days he'd been taking his sick kid to nursery to infect other children during a pandemic? ED clearly understood the meaning behind my question as he bit back at me, "Yes, I had to go to work. I couldn't stay home just because little girl has the sniffles. If the staff was so worried about the other kids, they could have just kept them away from her." He glowers at me. Although he didn't say it outright, I got the feeling the nursery staff told him he had to come get his little girl in case she infected the other kids. "Okay, you can take a seat and wait to be called by the nurse." ED picks up the letter he had placed on the desk between us and waves in front of me again. "No, we've got a letter, we don't need to wait. I'm afraid that we are really busy right now, and everyone has to wait to be triaged." "No," he says slowly, "I have a letter from the GP, telling us to come here. We don't need to wait, just send us back." I apologize and explain to him hospital procedure. I can understand how frustrating it is, but it is really busy, and an ambulance had came in not too long ago. Eventually he huffs and stalks over to the waiting area, and I begin speaking to the next parent in line. Maybe 3 minutes later, ED storms up to the desk interrupting the mom in front of me. "And how long do you expect me to wait here? My little girl needs to be seen." I tell him the wait could be an hour or so, but I couldn't say for sure. He tells me that's ridiculous and that I have a referral letter. Yes sir, but a lot of the kids here have referral letters. We will take you as soon as we can. He storms off again and I apologize to the parent he interrupted. Another 15 minutes later ED comes back over, pointing wildly as an 8-year-old boy who is limping towards the back with the nurse. Why is he being taken? My little girl needs help. I can't believe you're making us wait, my child is sick. She is a sick child and you are just letting her suffer. I have a letter. I'm sorry sir, I then explain hospital procedure again, and that there are a lot of sick kids here. He doesn't listen. I explain it again in more detail. I keep trying to politely dismiss him as the queue of parents waiting to admit their sick children is getting longer. I'm trying to calm the ED down as a young doctor comes in the desk behind me to collect something. Excuse me, I would like to make a complaint, he says loudly, glaring at me viciously. The doctor wanders over and ED starts before the doctor has a chance to speak. I have a GP referral, and this thing, he points at me, is being incredibly rude and not listening to me. She needs to be seen right now. I have my letter and I'm still being made to wait. This is utterly ridiculous. Now, usually when this happens, and it happens a lot, the members of staff will say the same thing as me and ask them not to speak to other staff members in such a way. This didn't happen. Oh, I'm really sorry, let me see what I can do, the young doctor says, and takes the letter away as they go into the back. ED looks at me smugly. You have absolutely no idea what you are doing. I had to leave work, phone the GP, and come all the way up here and deal with an idiot like you. You are putting my little girl at risk. I'm going to put in a complaint about you. This is ridiculous, he continues his tirade while I'm trying to ignore him and get to the other patients. The young doctor comes back and smiled at ED. If you could just come through here. ED goes back to collect his daughter from the chair she looks to be falling asleep on and takes her through. I found out later from the nurses that the young doctor just put them in a separate room to wait instead of the main waiting area. It isn't the worst entitled parent story, not even the worst that day, but it's definitely the first time I've ever been called a thing before. My mother took away my computer, only to tell me that you should be thanking me. Hello, Reddit. I have no idea if this goes here, but this happened just a bit ago, and I'm absolutely fuming. I also want to know if it's me or my mom who is in the wrong on this situation, because I'm self-conscious and keep doubting my stance on this. A bit of context. I love my mom. She tries hard to keep a roof over my head and food on the table. But that doesn't mean she's perfect. And it shows at any moment when she decides to stick her nose in my school life. I'm not doing the best in my advanced chemistry class. The teacher that I have goes way too fast for half the people in the class, and then does little to nothing to help the people that fall behind. She's charismatic, but her teaching style sucks and her grades aren't structured in a way that makes every grade worthwhile to do. I've been trying my hardest to catch up even though it's not even 5 weeks into school, and she already has at least 20 assignments in the gradebook, but it's proving difficult with the 6 other classes I have to juggle, on top of band practices. At the same time, I have a small YouTube channel that I like to edit and stream for on my free time. I play Minecraft on it, and it's something I really enjoy doing. A couple days prior, I got word that MCC Rising was a thing, and really wanted to try out for it because it could have very well been my big break, my chance to get my channel monetized and finally have my mom not see it as purely a distraction. The application to MCC Rising is due on the day that I'm writing this, September 15th, and the story starts on September 13th. Now, on to the story. I get home from a pretty productive day of school, and my plan was that the productivity wasn't going to end there. I was gonna get my work done in chemistry, then I was gonna use the next day that I had off from school because of a weather alert to finish my application to MCC. I go into my room, and my computer's gone. My mom took my computer out of my room because she got an email from one of my band directors saying that if I don't get my grades up, I can't participate in marching band. Bear in mind, marching band practices are the sole reason for why I'm behind in the first place since we have them every day. I'm not a confrontational person, so I go to my mom to go politely ask her about it. When I ask her if I can have my computer back if I get my work done, she dangles a glimmer of hope for me getting it back over my head like I'm some sort of dog reaching for a chew toy. We'll talk about it tomorrow, only if you get your work done. Talk about it? So it isn't certain? Saying that we'd talk about it only insinuates that there's a chance all my work will either be for naught or not worth the outcome I got. But fine. I'll play your game even though I was already planning to do the work anyway. Through the whole time I was doing my work, instead of being inspired and motivated to get it knocked out, now I was just frustrated and getting pissed at any minor inconvenience that came my way. I ended up finishing all of my work at 7 p.m. on the next day. When I went up to my mom to tell her I was finished, she tried to find every reason in book to prove that I wasn't actually finished. When she couldn't find it, she decided to put me on her time schedule by saying that we'd talk at 8:30 when her college class was finished. So that's like 1 hour that I could be using working on the MCC application wasted because she's forcing me to comply to her time schedule. Come 8:30, I ask her again, only to be yelled at about some stuff that I don't even remember anymore. I zone out every time she fusses because she fusses so much, then she tells me that I can have it back once I finish my chores. So now I only have 1 hour to get this application in because she wants me in bed by 10 o'clock. Me and my friends didn't even get what we needed for me to finish the application before she barges into my room, like she always does because she has no sense of privacy whatsoever, and tells me to pack it up and take it back outside. Then, she has the audacity to tell me you should be saying thank you for the 1 hour I gave you to do whatever you want. What? You single-handedly shoot me down off of my pillar of motivation, discourage me by bringing my computer out of my room, hold a glimmer of hope over my head by saying that we'd talk about bringing my computer back into my room if I got all my work done, stall me by putting me on your time schedule, then tell me that I should be thanking you. For what? For ruining my chances of having my YouTube channel, that has been constantly hindered from growing because of you, take off? For making me let my friends down, the only friends that I'm guaranteed to have because your government job isn't a permanent position? For proving to me that the only thing you care about is grades over my hobbies and the things that bring me joy. I never said that to her though, because my big brother tried fighting back against her before he turned 18, and it always ended in verbal altercations. I don't want my baby brother now to have to witness that so early in his life. I never got the application finished. At the time of my writing this, I found out that I wouldn't even have been able to participate in MCC Rising even if I got in because I have a band competition on that day, so the whole thing was hopeless from the start. To me, the only thing this boils down to is another reason to move out as soon as I get on my feet in a couple years. So please, Reddit. Am I justified in feeling like I've been manipulated, for lack of a better word? Am I not looking at this correctly? If I ask AITA, will this thread get taken down? LMAO. I hope everybody's having a better day than I am, because I have a headache. Have a good night, everybody. Entitled Mother touches my dog's wounds and gets mad when he nips at her. Hello Redditors. This happened today, and I really just need to vent. And I apologize for the long rant/story. So as some may know from a previous post I made, I have 12 half Marima half Sarplananak guard dogs. So earlier this week I was moving the cattle to a different part of the pasture on foot. When I noticed the cattle all getting a little spooked, and I didn't know right away what was wrong. But then I heard a loud yelp of pain followed by an angry snarl coming from behind me. And I then heard another yelp which was quickly cut off midway. Me as well as my two dogs Rasta and Freya bolted towards the commotion. I saw 5 of my other dogs Fenrir, Winona, Shiva, Lily, and Jaeger. Sorry, not all my dogs have Norse names, having just killed a group of 4 coyotes. Now I feel I should preface by saying that coyotes are all too common where I live. And them trying to ambush a lone calf or dog isn't an uncommon occurrence either. But one of the coyotes had apparently scratched Jaeger's right shoulder pretty badly, but he'd managed to kill the coyote that had torn him up. Winona had begun licking his wound as I kneeled down to take a look at it. The scratches didn't seem to be too bad at first glance, but I wasted no time in leading Jaeger to the truck and taking him straight to the vet's office. Luckily no one was there that day, so I got right in and gave the vet the rundown on what happened. They took Jaeger into a room where they patched him up and I paid them and left. Jaeger spent basically all week healing and resting, and early this morning I decided I was gonna take him to our local Petco and get some flea and tick supplies as well as some treats and maybe new toys for all the dogs. Now I don't always bring my dogs with me into pet shops, parks, and the like. So as we walk in, we both garner some attention due to Jaeger's size and beautiful coat. And I couldn't help but smile a bit. Quite a few people approached us to give us compliments, ask about the missing chunk of hair, the visible marks on his right side, and if they could pet my dog. I explain what happened to Jaeger and tell everyone they can just give him a pat or rub on his head. Although Jaeger was still a little cranky and sore, he seemed to enjoy all the attention, but after a few minutes I excused us from the small crowd we'd gathered so I could do what I came to do. We walked into an aisle with dog puzzle toys, like those Kong toys. I eventually find a few balls that dispense dog food by being moved around a certain way, and these rubber discs that have these ring-shaped treats for it. I grab some flea and tick stuff and go on to the treat aisle. As I'm letting Jaeger choose some treats, I hear a gasp and I turn to look. There's a blonde white woman who's I think was in her 40s, and with her is a little girl maybe 16 who I imagine has to be the daughter. They marvel at Jaeger and ask to pet him, so I tell them exactly what I'd already told everyone else before her. The little girl pets Jaeger, and when the mom goes to pet him I see her going to rub his sides. I only get to say wait dash before she rubs his still sore scratch marks a little too hard and he nips at her hand. The woman jumps back and starts loudly asking me why I'd bring my aggressive dog into a pet store and why I let her pet my dog knowing it would bite. I calmly tell her, ma'am, did it ever occur to you that his scratched up side might be sore? That's why I told you to pet his head. And he didn't bite you, nor did he even nip you. He nipped at you. That shows he didn't want to hurt you, just get you to stop aggravating his wounds. As I'm sure you can imagine, this just gets her even more upset, and she loudly declared she was gonna find someone to kick me out of the store. I just wave her off and start to grab some treats, and after roughly a minute little Miss Karen comes back with an employee shouting that my dog had attacked her, and that she wanted me thrown out. The employee, an absolute doll, stares at Jaeger for a moment, then at Karen, and says, ma'am, I highly doubt that gentleman's dog attacked you. I mean, you're still standing, and you're clearly not injured. I think it's safe to assume that if the dog had attacked you, you'd likely be severely injured right now. The woman of course tried to double down on her claims, and so the employee asked for my side of things, which I told her in full detail. By this point many of the people who'd been loving on Jaeger earlier started to gather, and call out the woman, basically repeating what I'd said to them. The lady ended up just leaving after making a fool of herself, and I thanked all of the wonder folks who'd backed me up and apologized to the employee for making a scene, but she just smiled and waved off what I said. I paid for my things, made it home, and gave the dogs their toys once we got home.